Hi there, my name is Michael Harris. I'm host of Falling Up Radio. This is a place where we have frank, raw, and edgy conversations about crushing your fears. And I want to let you know we have a really great guest today that has crushed her fears beyond your belief. I did want to remind you, though, that my book, Falling Down, Getting Up, if you go to this website, Falling Down, Getting Up, or even better yet, go to fallingupradio.com, and you get this book free, and you get a free download immediately of the ebook as well. So you get a printed copy of the book and immediate download of the ebook. So what could be better than that? So anyway, again, if you want to take a quantum leap in your life, if you like the idea of not just taking little steps at a time, which are important, we're going to talk about that today, but also taking that quantum leap. It's like nature. One day it's sunny and beautiful, and the next day it's snowing and you got a foot of snow on the ground. Nature's an incredible example of shape-shifting and taking a quantum leap. But enough about that. Let's get right to our guest. She's just so incredible in what she's done and what she's been able to overcome and the fears that she's crushed in her life. I've got 3 pages of notes already on her, and it's just like it goes on and on and on. Our guest, she started practicing yoga at the age of 19, so pretty young. And she walked into this yoga studio. She had RA, rheumatoid arthritis. She had claw hands. She'll tell you more of her story. But over that period of time, she lost almost her whole thyroid, 3/4 of her thyroid. She had tumors in her neck. She was heavily medicated on virtually every drug you can imagine. And she started walking into this class, a hot yoga class, and slowly but surely, she started making changes in her body. So we're going to hear her story, and she's going to tell us how she crushed her fears, how she took those little steps I mentioned a moment ago, as well as moments where quantum leaps happen. So our guest today, Jessica Gardner. She has a yoga studio in New Jersey, and she's also a senior teacher for Jimmy Barkin and Barkin Method Yoga, huge worldwide yoga. If you don't know about yoga, look that up as well. So Jessica, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell me, that first time you walked into a yoga studio, I mean, how'd you get there? I mean, you were in so much pain from your rheumatoid arthritis. What drove you to go to a hot yoga class?
Someone said, try yoga. And I literally Googled it and showed up. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea that there was hot yoga or a cold yoga or the difference. And I just walked into class, and I was the youngest person in the room, with a room full of really, what's the word? Very disciplined students, with men in Speedos and women in one pieces. And I had no clue what I walked into.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you more about your rheumatoid arthritis. I want to keep calling it RA, but I want to make sure that the listeners understand. When did you start developing that? Did you already always have that? And describe your condition, because I understand it that you had pretty clawed hands and fingers and such.
All of the symptoms of everything that I had started manifesting themselves when I was about 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so along with the arthritis, I also have an autoimmune condition similar to lupus, where the body attacks itself, and it can't distinguish good cells from bad cells. So where lupus would attack organs, mine attacks like thin areas of skin in the body. So my esophagus, my intestines, my mouth, my eyes, my urinary tract. So places where the skin is very thin, it almost starts to pull away and look like almost like someone poured like acid on it. Like it just like because the body's attacking it, so it just peels that skin away. So it becomes very raw and painful. And the first manifestation of it was when I was 12. And then the actual arthritis started after that. And and then the thyroid. So things just kind of kept compounding from there, all symptomatic of the same thing. Just, keep manifesting it in different ways. Yeah.
So as a teenager, you were in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you get through school? And what was your, like, were you feeling good about yourself? When did you start taking all the meds?
I didn't start taking any real medication until I was about 16 years old. And that was when the thyroid happened. So when I was 16, I had 5 tumors in my neck, and my neck was all like bloated and swollen. And they first had just thought it was muscle. It was just muscular. And so they had let it go for a while, thinking that, the muscles would go down. And then over time, when it didn't go away, then we realized, or sent me for different testing that said that I had 5 or 6 tumors in my neck.
And were they benign or cancerous, or?
They came back cancerous. And so we removed the tumors as well as what was attached to the thyroid. But then there was my mother didn't want to do the swallow and get rid of the whole thyroid. She wanted me to try to keep as much as I could. So we kept a quarter of it in. So I actually do have a quarter of my thyroid, which functions now fine enough for the body without me having to take Synthroid. But Synthroid was like the real first introduction to like serious medication, that everyday type medication.
So they removed the tumors and then put you on Synthroid. Yeah.
And then once that started to happen, the arthritis started getting pretty bad. So when I was in college, I actually went to nursing school. And when I was in nursing school, I was a disability student, but I wasn't a learning disability student. I was a health disability student. So I had to go to all my teachers and tell them I was a health disability student for 2 reasons. One, I had to have a note taker because I couldn't get through class with the amount of notes that needed to be taken. Was
that because your hands were clawed, or what was happening?
Yeah, I couldn't hold the pen. And it was before technology where people would carry the laptops and things, stuff like that. So I used to have a recorder, but I couldn't get through the class to hold the pen long enough to keep.
Well, now you're holding a pencil, and you look like you can hold it fine.
Yeah, I'm okay now. Long periods of time, I struggle with. So I'm not really a journaler. People always say journal.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a journaler, but I have found ways to talk into it, to dictate and stuff like that. So I do find ways around it.
Yeah.
Simple things like buttoning my shirts. That was difficult at 16 to 18. I always make the reference just as a young girl. It was like I couldn't pluck my eyebrows. I still had trouble holding the tweezers to do it myself. So I do still have areas where things still do pop up and bother me. It's just I can manage it better now when it actually happens. Yeah. I didn't know.
Let's see your hand. I mean, was your hand pretty much in a clawed form, or what?
Yeah, these 3 fingers.
Yeah.
These 3 fingers never really straightened.
Right.
And when I first started the yoga and I would do standing bow, I used to call it R2D2 because it would live long and prosper.
Right.
It would, and everybody would always tell me to fix my hands. And I'd be like, I'm trying. But it's in these 2 knuckles here and right here. And they come and go. Sometimes it looks like I have a boxing glove on. Like you can't really distinguish the knuckle or the form of the fingers.
Yeah.
But other times it's fine and they're just a little bit swollen. You see, they don't really straighten up. Yeah.
So as a teenager, I mean, were you active at all and trying to do any sports or?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I actually played, I played softball. I played slow pitch softball.
Really?
Yep, I was all divisions, slow pitch softball in high school. We won state championships. Like I was a
Oh,
yeah athlete. While trying to live a normal life, while all of these things were coming in and out.
uh,
Those years were interesting.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And did you have a boyfriend and all of that in high school, or?
Yeah, I had a high school sweetheart for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Because I know some people, and myself included, from some of the health conditions that I have, which I won't get into now, but sometimes it's hard to connect with other people. But did you find that you were still able to like connect with your girlfriends and boyfriends and sweethearts and all that?
I definitely had a high school sweetheart, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was, I had my high school sweetheart, and we spent time in and out. And then the friends were very difficult because people didn't really believe me on a Friday night that I wasn't feeling well.
Mm.
That I didn't want to go out on Friday night because I wasn't well. They thought I didn't want to be with them, or whatever 16-year-olds
Right.
really take offense to, she doesn't really want to be my friend. So those type of social interactions were difficult for sure. Yeah.
So a lot of times on weekends you were at home rather than out and about with the girlfriends.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk more about when you walked into the yoga studio. I don't know too much about it. I know a little bit about it, that it was a slow start, but something must have happened for you to come back. So tell the listeners more about that first class and what happened.
Well, it was within I couldn't even get through the first breathing exercise.
Mm.
I did the first 2 breaths and I dropped to the floor. And that's how, like, weak from the medication. I think at that moment I realized that how much of an effect the medication actually had on my overall being.
Mm-hmm.
And I dropped. I think I did 2 breaths and I had to take a knee. And it was that moment where I looked around and I was like, I'm the youngest person in the room and I cannot stand up right now.
Did you want to run or what happened?
No, it was more of like, I can conquer this. Like, you can do this. And so I literally did 1 set of every posture. I would stand, do it, sit, stand, do it, sit, stand, do it, sit. And that was my practice for probably a year.
But so after that first class, did you come back the next day, or did you come back a week later, or how soon did you come back?
No, I had to for a while, I could only do once a week because it took me a week to recover.
Wow.
So
but why did you keep coming back? I mean, if it took you that long to recover from this class, I mean, there must have been something inside of you that was pushing you and knowing that it was helping you.
It's so simple, but yet it's so compelling. It made me drink water. And it seems so simple, but yet it's such a big deal because at the time I was on such high doses of prednisone that it affected how well I swallowed. So I didn't really want to drink, or I didn't really want to eat, and I had a tough time getting things down. And when I took class, after class, I drank probably 1 liter of water. And for me, I probably hadn't been drinking 1 liter of water in months, maybe a year. And I also wasn't taught, as maybe it was just the generation or the age thing or the time, but I wasn't taught to drink water. So we weren't taught, if you're thirsty, drink water. It was Gatorade or Crystal Light or, Sunny D. Like I wasn't taught, where's your water bottle? If you're thirsty, drink that.
Yeah.
It's so weird. But when you look back at it, or when I look back at it, and the symptoms of being a sick child and how my diet was and the things that I was putting in my body, it makes sense that it all was the way that it was.
Hmm. So the teachers at the studio, were you always going to a hot yoga studio, and was the teacher um, helping you through the RA? How was the teacher
So
working
my
with?
first teacher was Marianne Nassa,
Hmm.
and has a studio in Cranston, Rhode Island, and it's been open since probably the mid '80s, since just right around when I was born. And Marianne she always got it. Like she pushed me in a positive way, but then she backed off when she really saw something was going on. So it was just enough of that gentle, like, keep moving, to keep me motivated enough to do it. Plus I knew how good I felt when I was done, and I knew how good it felt for me to drink water, and it was almost like it was relieving the symptoms of the medication. Like, it was allowing the medication to work the way that it needed to work and not work to other areas and have side effects.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So from that first class to a year later, you said you were doing most of the time one set, because there's two sets of the yoga you're doing. You're doing one set. What was the difference you felt from that first class to a year later?
I was getting through the whole class, and that was a big deal for me, to be able to conquer the ability to be able to stand and be normal in a class.
And did you feel a difference in your fingers or your hands, or?
Um, Not in the beginning.
Yeah.
No.
So it took more than a year.
Yeah, it definitely took. The first thing that was really affected was the thyroid. So within 6 months, I was able to come off the Synthroid.
So in 6 months, you eliminated those meds.
Yeah, 6 months, I was done with the Synthroid.
And never to go back.
No, never went back.
Wow.
I've not been on Synthroid since.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you let go of any other meds in your first year?
In the first year, no, it took maybe until I was 23, 22 before I started to get rid of all of the.
So 3 or 4 years, and you're able to start reducing and eliminating.
Yeah, when I was 22, I moved to Las Vegas. And I think the combination of heat and the weather in Las Vegas, and I kept up with my yoga practice in Las Vegas, then I was able to start making those shifts, where at the time I came off the methotrexate, I was done, because I used to inject it in my leg weekly. So I came off of the methotrexate because I just didn't
For
like
those that don't know what that is, tell the listeners what that's for.
Methotrexate is an immune suppressant drug. It's one of the drugs that they use in chemotherapy, and when they give it to someone with an autoimmune condition, either an RA or a lupus type thing, it keeps the suppression of the immune system down so that it doesn't attack the body.
Mm-hmm.
So I would inject it into my thigh because the pills would make me really sick.
Wow. And what were the doctors saying all along is you were doing this and they started watching you like get off first the Synthroid and then the other meds?
I actually had doctors that wouldn't see me anymore.
Really?
Yeah. I actually had 2 doctors that said, if you're not going to take the medication, I can't help you. So even to this day, I struggle finding rheumatologists or somebody who will watch over my care without having medication be at the forefront of my healing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, are you on any meds today at all?
Currently today, no.
Awesome.
Yeah. Currently
awesome.
Today, no. But that doesn't mean I don't come on and off them. I've learned over the years when it's time to take them, and I've learned when it's not time to take them.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend to people, if they first are talking to me or come to me, to say, like, you got to get off that. That's not kind of the route I go down, because as I've learned and studied with Eastern medicine as well as Western medicine, sometimes you need the combination of both. And it's okay to have them both, but you need to know when is the time to.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find that when you practice more, well, let me ask you, how often do you practice now per week? 3, 4, 5 times a week, or?
Every day.
Every day. So when you're practicing every day, is there?
I move every 12 hours.
You move every 12 hours?
Yeah. If I don't move every 12 hours, I'm in serious pain. So
Wow.
I do class or some type of class in a heated room, in a heated environment. Whether if I can't get to class, it's a steam room or the shower or sauna or something. And then 12 hours later, I have to move again.
Is it walking? Does that help, or?
Walking helps. It's an okay substitute, but for me, it has to be some type of like pressure on my hands. It has to be some type of hip movement, some type of yoga, something.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is most of your yoga today hot, or do you do different types of yoga?
I do a lot of different types of yoga, but I always make sure there's a hot class. If it's a non-hot class or another thing, it's my second. Yeah.
So by 3 or 4 years, you've let go of your meds.
Yeah.
And what were you thinking? Were you thinking, oh my God, this is the greatest thing in the world? I mean, what was emotionally, how were you handling it?
The doctor said it was normal to go into remission. So in the beginning, I just chalked it up to the fact that I was in remission. But I started to notice and from the yoga gave me a body awareness, because the hot room or the heat exponentially makes you feel things more.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to understand that how much the medication affect my body in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed once I was on a prednisone, like, oh, okay, now when you're not in the room, this is where the prednisone's affecting you. Or if I took a Plaquenil or a methotrexate or even a colchicine, something like that, it would be like, yeah, okay, so I could understand the side effects of it more when I wasn't in the room.
Describe to the listeners what the different meds do.
We talked about the methotrexate, which is the immune suppressant. And then Plaquenil is actually what they give to people for malaria. But it actually works in autoimmune conditions. So it's kind of like a piggyback drug. They don't really know how it works, but it works. Mm-hmm. And colchicine is like an anti-inflammatory, but it's in its own class, different than an Aleve or Advil or something like that. So that's what but when I am having a true flare or something's really bad, I have to go on everything all at once. Mm. So if it's not super bad, sometimes they try to give me the colchicine before they move me to a methotrexate. They've even tried to give me Humira. I'm not really one who wants to take those types of things. So I kind of fight it and see what I can do. Like, how bad is it really going to get before I have to take something? Yeah. So we just kind of go down that road. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at what point, I mean, you were practicing, you were feeling better, letting go of the meds. At what point did you decide that you were going to be a yoga teacher?
I decided that it needed to be in my life every day. I knew when I did it every day and I was consistent, I felt better. I didn't really care why, didn't really care how it worked. Like I just was like, it works and this is what I need to do. And that's actually one of the reasons why I opened the studio, because I was like, I have to have my own home to do this in every day. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a doctor one time too, as I started practicing yoga for my conditions. The doctor said, you should really do this every day. You should do this as much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was part of me becoming a teacher as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I when I went to training, I didn't know Bikram was a person.
A lot of people don't. So you went to Bikram training, and then what year was that?
I went in 2007. I was the second Hawaii training.
It's the second training in Hawaii. So you went and spent, I guess it was 9-week training.
Yep, I did the 9-week training there. I lived in the hotel like many other people do, and I was still, when I actually went to the teacher training, was 2 months after I had both of my feet reconstructed from the rheumatoid arthritis.
So when you say 2 months after your feet were reconstructed, what happened?
So I had my left foot done in April.
When you say done, what did they do?
So my feet, my toes were so bad that they had to shave the bone down in order for me to get my feet in sneakers. So I used to have to wrap them with Band-Aids, and I used to have to pad them, the back of my heel, the first knuckle, and the pinky and the side, in order to just get them into shoes. So I used to have to wrap them heavily and cushion it all, because otherwise they would bleed. So I went to the doctor, and they were, so clawed up. He said, we'd have to shave the bones. Had I had known I was going to be a yoga teacher in barefoot, I probably wouldn't have had it done. But I have pretty feet now, but it did take a few years to recover. But I had the first one done in April, and I had the second one done in June. And by September, I was at teacher training in Hawaii. So my feet were still really recovering from all of that trauma when I went.
Yeah. Now the teacher training, I know you're doing yoga twice a day and then yoga in between. It's a lot of yoga.
Yeah.
Did you feel different by doing that additional yoga? Did that make a change in what you were feeling in your body?
Yeah, it made a drastic change until the very end. And then the very end, it was like, well, one too much. Just turn that knob just a little too much, and it got me right at the end. But it was a good experience otherwise, and I wouldn't change what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And so did you come out of that experience week, 2 weeks, month, couple months later going, oh my God, that was one of the greatest things again that I've ever done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took about maybe 3 months or 4 months.
Yeah.
Once everything settled down, my life settled back down, everything got back into some routine and consistency. It was hands down one of the best things I've done in my life. Absolutely.
And did you go back to your teacher that you had been practicing with?
Yes.
To Marianne?
Yeah, I always go. I grew up in Rhode Island, and where Marianne is. So no matter where I live or where I move, whenever there's a holiday and I go back home to see my mother, I always go and see Marianne. So she's been consistent in my life for a lot of years.
Yeah. Wow. So how long have you taught there, or how long did you teach there before you opened up your own studio?
I actually taught in Baltimore for 3 years. So my husband is a business consultant, so we move wherever his project is. So we actually ended up in Baltimore for a few years, and I taught at Bikram Yoga Baltimore with Eddie and Emily for about 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great. So what inspired you to then open a studio?
When we moved to Philadelphia from Baltimore. And when we moved to Philadelphia, the only school in that area at the time was Joel's in Philadelphia. And I was in New Jersey. So it was like just too much of a trek for me to come into the city. So that's when I opened one out in the suburbs.
So it's out of convenience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, no, I get it.
I need to do this every day, maybe sometimes more, more than once a day. And it was too far to have that commute. So I was very fortunate and blessed, and I did it.
And when did you open that studio?
In 2010, we actually opened the doors.
So you've been open 9 years this year.
Yeah.
I had to do some quick math. It shouldn't be too hard of math. Yeah. So when you have students now that come in that maybe they have RA, maybe that there's other type of health concerns that they might have, how do you work with that particular individual?
Well, the first thing is that it's really tough to get out of the cycle of doctors and what they tell us is in our best interest. So people have to understand first that they have to manage their own care, and they can't leave it to a doctor to tell them the route to go, and that they have more control than what they think that they do. And if someone is open to that idea, then usually we go a little bit further. But sometimes people are resistant to the thought process that the doctor can be a secondary form of help, mm-hmm. rather than themselves being that first form of help. And there are different modalities and different avenues that they can put together in order to be able to start their own healing, their own growth. I kind of point people in the direction of other people that can help. Like, I don't really do anything like myself. You know what I'm saying? I say, like, find a person, that person, you need that. Find this person, you need that. And then let them kind of redirect them. Like, from an acupuncturist to a kinesiologist to, an energy healer, an Eastern medicine, all these different modalities we can put together and have a total healing process, for sure.
So you're really helping them discover how to heal themselves.
Yeah, just help them steer the boat a little bit.
Yeah.
They have questions or come and say, hey, I'm like, go, now it's time for an acupuncturist. Just, try that out. Or now it's time to meditate. You find a spiritual healer type thing.
Yeah. I know when I left the hospital, I left AMA against medical advice. The doctor said I was going to lose my legs in a couple of months and I would be dying pretty soon as well. And I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. So I signed out AMA. And then that's really what triggered my initial journey into healing and understanding exactly what you were saying, that we have a lot of ability to understand and to manage our own healthcare.
Yeah.
Our own lives.
Yeah. We have to take control of that. We have to take control of it, but we also have to decide and understand we can. It's like the switch kind of flips. You're like, nope, I can figure this out.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There is a doctor at my first studio that I had in Portland, and he was coming quite a bit, and he had been a medical staff president for 5 hospitals and about 600 doctors. And we had talked a lot about the yoga and how it heals and all of that. And one of the things that he suggested to me at that time was that of the 5 hospitals that they managed, they could get rid of 4 of them and only keep 1 of them. Get rid of 4, let me say that again. Get rid of 4 and only keep 1 of them if people would just do yoga and do the hot yoga to help heal themselves.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We do not give ourselves enough credit for how much we can actually handle, manage, control, and be really proactive about things, our healthcare, our how we feel, our mental well-being, our emotions, so many things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know too, like one of the examples that he mentioned was that, you take a person that might weigh, say, 400 pounds, and they come in 1 year, because of all that extra weight, their knees are getting damaged, so they do surgery on one knee.
Right. And
then a year or 2 later, they do surgery on the other knee. And then, a few years later, they take their gallbladder out, and, it goes on and on and on. And that ends up costing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And if you go to yoga, it's about $1,000 a year. So you go to yoga for a year, you're going to feel so different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, I literally stopped going to doctors, and I had doctors starting to come to me. You know, and I don't know if you have that experience where you have doctors and physicians coming to your classes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I had another doctor here in Bend, and he was referring a lot of his students to the same yoga class that he was coming to.
Yeah.
And he finally had to stop doing it because the patients that he had were coming to the class and wanting his attention.
Yeah.
And he wanted his own place between, because he was a surgeon and wanted his own place between surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, it's doctors. I will own, well, I usually will only go to a doctor that has some type of knowledge of the yoga, comes to the yoga, is referred by someone who went to the yoga, so that they know when I walk in, like, I do yoga and this is how it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Now you've also have had several children.
Yes.
And you had twin girls,
Yes.
is twin girls, and you did the yoga all the way through your pregnancy. Is that right?
I did both pregnancies. I have twin girls who are 5, and then I have a baby who's 3. Well, she's not a baby, but yes, she's 3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now a lot of people will say, well, you can't really do yoga when you're pregnant, or you can't do hot yoga when you're pregnant. You know, there's all these different things. And tell the listeners what your experience was with that.
Well, personally, for me, it would have been more damaging if I had stopped.
Yeah.
So at that point, my body would have just freaked out. We're not getting our reset button. And so it would have been, and even doctors told me, keep doing it, it's okay. And the twins were actually IVF. And I had the twins implanted, and I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but they had the twins were implanted, and they said, you know, take it easy for a few days, maybe some light bed rest. And I was in the yoga room. Just because my beliefs, and I was like, if it was good for me at every other moment in my life, then it's going to be good for me right here. And this isn't going to be the time that it's going to turn its back on me.
Yeah.
And there are women who live in hot climates, women who live in India, women who live in South America, and it's very warm there, consistently warm there, consistently humid, and they give birth like normal. So as long as, I know for me in my own studio, in my place, as long as we know the mom, as long as she has a regular practice, as long as it's something that's been consistent in her routine, then she can come whenever she wants to come.
Yeah.
I did not stop with any of it's my place. It's my place of safety. It's my place of healing. It's my place of comfort. I know when to back off. I know when to slow down. I know when to sit and just sweat and feel good. And I let it be that safe place for me, rather than something I have to push through, or something I have to put too much pressure on myself to accomplish.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you think of a student that you've had over the years as a teacher that maybe had some, I'll do quotes, exceptional healing experience, of really, regardless of what it is? Do you have anybody that particularly pops into your mind?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My actual business partner, Christine, she's gone through amazing transformations with a lot of the similar stuff. She had osteoarthritis in her hip. She just recently had a hysterectomy. So when she came to me in the beginning, she couldn't really move her leg very much.
And how long has she been practicing?
Christy has been with me since 2012. I think she started. I think she went to Bikram's training in maybe 13 or 14, around there.
Mm-hmm.
But she's done great healing stuff with her body for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's a teacher now too, and she's working and helping with other people in your studio too.
Yes, she's the director at the studio in New Jersey, and she's at the forefront and the point of contact for people's healing process, and she understands it from that little bit different point of view of having to go through it and practice yoga from a healing avenue rather than a fitness avenue. So she can talk to people very, very intelligently about that.
So how'd you end up with Jimmy Barkin and being one of the senior teachers with Jimmy?
Interestingly, so Marianne also trained with Jimmy years back in the 80s. And so Marianne always would talk about Jimmy in class. And then it came to 2015, somewhere around there, maybe 16. And I wanted to diversify the studio and add different genres of yoga. And I wanted to add a vinyasa. But I also very much wanted to keep it within the same lineage, because our lineage is very important to me. It's something that I hold dear to my heart, where we came from and how we do it, why we do it, even Bikram, the whole community. And so I didn't want to veer from the lineage. And I knew that Jimmy had a vinyasa training. So I didn't know anybody. I didn't know his sequence. I had never done the class before. And I showed up to do this teacher training with 3 of my teachers. I took the 4 of us down to go and do it. And I just sat in the corner. Like I said, I tried to remain very low key. And by day 3, he asked me if I would come be on staff.
That was pretty quick.
Yeah. So I was, we took it slow in the beginning. I said, let me think about it. Let me see what's happening and what's going on. And the more I got exposed to Jimmy and his beliefs, and it very much mirrored everything that we all do. And I like his operation. I like how he teaches, how he runs things. And so I ended up being one of his senior staff members.
Wow. So from walking into that room at 19 years old, on meds, RA, some clawed fingers, all of these different things, most of your thyroid removed. Did you have any idea you were going to end up where you are today?
No, not even a little bit. It's a very long, painful road. Literally long, painful road. And I think it's just consistency, doing it every day. I'm very blessed for where I am now. I'm very grateful for everything that's happened to me in the past, even though it didn't seem like it at the time. And I'm very fortunate. I'm fortunate to be part of his organization, what he has. I'm fortunate to have the studio. I'm fortunate to have great people in my life like you, and it's good life. I'm blessed.
Yeah, cool. Well, if to the listeners, anybody that might be struggling with some type of maybe it's RA, maybe it's not, maybe it's thyroid, maybe it's not, any type of condition, what advice would or could you give to them about maybe encouraging them to do, like I like what you said earlier about beginning to manage their own care and to begin to really take their healing into their own hands. Do you have any thoughts that the listener might be able to connect with?
I think that when someone's ready to heal, they'll know it. And when they're ready to heal, then the first thing I tell them to do is to move. When you're ready to move, when you're ready to heal, you have to move your body. Have to move. And then it's almost like the layers of the onion will unfold itself as needed. But when they're ready to make the step, find someone who's supportive in helping you make that step, because a lot of times you're in that energy swirl, or even family or friends, and maybe like, no, can't do that. Or, you might get pushback from people because it's not in the norm of what we normally do. But find people who are supportive. If it's a spiritual person, if it's a yoga person, if it's a Eastern medicine doctor, even a Western medicine doctor, a DO, find someone who teeters on that line of something unseen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, and the needing to move is huge.
Yeah.
And for myself, I mean, I was on a cane for quite a while, and I literally couldn't walk 10 feet. And so I had to start moving literally one step at a time till I could get to 11 feet, and then 12 feet and 15 feet. And, today you wouldn't know the difference.
Right. But you gotta have that's where you gotta decide you want to do it. That's first, you gotta decide. And then once you decide, then you gotta move.
Yeah.
And you just, sometimes you listen to your body, and sometimes you have to know better than your body. Because sometimes I say, if I listen to my body, some mornings I wouldn't get out of bed. And you can't. You have to get out of bed and you got to move, because the more you don't move, the more it makes you feel like you can't move, or the more it makes you feel worse. It's like, it is really that age-old body in motion stays in motion. You have to move.
Yeah. So as we get to the end of our conversation today, is there some place that the listener can reach you or find out more? Do you have a website?
Yes, I do have a website. It's jessicgyoga.com, and you can read my story again there. You can contact me from there if anybody has any questions, or where to start, or interested in making that first leap. Just even talking about it is a big deal. Finding someone who will be your cheerleader is a big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for the listeners out there, if you're listening to this rather than watching this, if you go to fallingupradio.com and you follow it to Jessica Gardner's page, we will have that website listed for you too, so you can go there in case you weren't able to write it down. Yeah. So tell me, Jessica, when are you writing your book?
I'll have to dictate it into my notes.
Well, I mean, you've had quite a journey, and it's just like, I've been around the yoga world for a long time as well, and have seen a lot of people heal. And for some reason, I particularly like when I hear about people that have had RA, that are working through that, and have got a great deal of relief from that, because it's one of those type of challenges that sometimes we think we need to manage differently with intensive medical care, and we don't always need to do that. And that, like you said, just as long as you start moving, things will begin to change.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think those types of things also become very emotional because it's very painful. Yeah. So I think getting on the other side of pain is a big deal, and starting to target the true reasons for pain.
Yeah. Cool. So. Well, I want to have you back when you write your book, so we're going to have to get a book out pretty soon for you. Because, I mean, you're truly motivational, and you've really been open today about what happened with you. And, I mean, this show is about crushing your fears. Yeah. And it sounds like that's something that you've done, is crushed your fears.
Yeah. I knew there was a better way to live. I knew I was too young to live this way for the rest of my life. Yeah. So how do you do it?
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today. What's your website again?
It's www.jessicgyoga.com.
Awesome. Okay, hold on. Don't go anywhere. I want to mention again, if you go to Falling Up Radio, You can get a copy of this book for free. I just asked you to pay for a little bit of shipping, and you also get the free ebook that you can download immediately. This book was #1 on Amazon in yoga, in recovery, and in stress. So pick it up, take a read, check out Jessica's website, and whatever it is that you're challenging with. We all get challenged by something at some point in our lives, or we wouldn't be human. Is just know that you can crush your fears too. I mean, Jessica's a prime example. She could have given up on her life as a 19-year-old, and now she's helping others recover from their conditions, from whatever it might be, and is a prime example of really living an awesome life. So thank you again, Jessica, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and hold on, and we'll talk to you soon.